Just closing go down some maps right now. Because BS really likes to eat a lot of resources. Okay. Right. Right. I don't know if anyone has popped in yet. No. I guess I'll just okay, I'll just like grab some tea. Okay. That was it. Okay. Quitting seed play. So I'm here. And it's time for another stream. I feel I haven't done a stream in like so long. I've been working, of course, but also been on vacation for a while. My kids. Just a week, but not an excuse, but just things have been busy. And it was like I was going to talk about one point. I was thinking like maybe I should talk about the pull requests. So like why sometimes it takes a long time to kind of get around to doing it. It's I kind of feel bad about this one. Has been in progress for so long, right? So like it needs tweaks, but sometimes it's like maybe I need to rewrite it a bit more to make it palatable or like actually fit into the code, right? Because consistency is like this. This is what's like that's what brings a long-term maintainability to a project, right? So if you see what's called legacy code bases, what's usually what they usually have in common is that they are. Oh, by the way, I hope you hear me clearly and so on. Let me know otherwise on the chat. Right. There was someone. Maybe okay. Right. So. Oh, okay. So that means every pull request requires that I have a lot of time to kind of look into it. And what can be done better when you're submitting a pull request is, of course, remember to write something in the release notes so that I don't have to rewrite the release notes about that feature that you added or the fix. Because sometimes I forget that was that as well, or I have to do like this extra commit, and it takes actually a lot of. It's like it takes a little extra time, and I can't just accept it. But also try to understand how things work. Oh, anyway, I was talking about the legacy system. So what happens is that usually kind of get layered by like, oh, this was like the code we wrote in 2010, and here's the 2012 code. Here's the 2014 code, and like, oh, and some we haven't removed the 2010 code because one or two functions here are relying on it still. You kind of get those, and it grows, but what's actually used is less and less. So you eventually it just becomes this unmaintainable monolith where actually very little code is in use, or it's used very rarely, right? So what you want to do is kind of refactor that code actually aggressively, so it makes sure that it's simple as possible. Okay, so we have a few pull requests here. We have the support for this CMake. I don't know what this is about. I guess someone added what? Okay. Oh, so they added the SO. Right. Yeah. That looks harmless enough, but I won't do that for now. Okay, so and then there's this typo suggestions thing, right? Which is nice, but it was doing a lot of things that seemed that was kind of patched, hacked on top. And it's understandable. Like if you go into a code base, that's going to happen. But I'm just saying that's why it takes some time for me to kind of do this pull request. I don't know if I should look at the pull request now, or I don't think I've looked at the code in a long time, right? So I haven't refactored these like Sima, Decal, Cons, and so on in a while. So I'd actually like to do that, to be honest. I don't remember the last time I did a pass on this, but you can see there are some warnings here. Oh, performing no multiplication. So let's see. Okay, so it's a max struct size. It will be like unassigned. Okay, and the member size is byte size, which is what? Oh, where is this used? Okay, so let's look at this. So it's used only here, and then for the offset as well. So the offset is on the line size, which is U in 32. So this one is fine, and the other one is like, no, because it's so small. Okay, well, we can do an explicit cost, which should make it happy. Or I can just write that as it. So max structure size is like 2. So it's in hex instead. So it's like what is it? 8? No. 2 billion. It's like oh, wait a minute. Is this correct? It should be like I want it to be max struct size should be like, look at this. I mean, there's a problem. Like I went to size same sign sizes by default in the C3 language, but in the compiler I still use the side, which is what I got the error from here. Okay, for now let's ignore that. So here's an underlying type. It's unused. What is it? Okay, enum constant val. Hang on, so the underlying type should be so the type is what? The that's the underlying type, which is the type info type. Is the only use, oops, is the only use like in one place, right? And it always has this underlying type, it's always ignored. Yeah, so it's going to try to cast it anyway. So we can remove the underlying type there. I think. Okay, and here what's the problem? Okay, it's a special use for switches. Okay, so let me just do attribute domain here to kind of silence that issue, hopefully. Nope. Maybe that warning will be silenced there, I don't know. Okay, the contracts here have different name. Okay, so declaration is called contract. All right. And by the way, this is actually could be improved, but yeah, it's doing the right thing. Hello, by the way. I'm just looking at chat right now. So let's have some comments first. So we want to, you know, analyze sections. Or maybe I should have like a normal. So. Okay, so maybe it should be poisoned there, but I don't know. Anyway, so okay, so we are going in here. If it's a rethrow, let's see what else we have. Right, so it's a rethrow. Okay. So one thing is that it has a rethrow, right? So case one, it's like read. So we look at the inner expression, which would be like this. It's an expression, so okay, so analyze it. Could be an null value or whatever. So in here, we like in the expression, we just go to the expression dispatch, and there's like different things. Like you can have do the expression, you can have the R value cache, R value. It could be an L value, it could be an R value. I'm still not happy with this design, by the way. It's like he's not great, but it's also I've tried to do it differently, and it just doesn't. It also becomes complex. Okay, so not there, so you just run analysis. So okay, yeah. So and then should be a, I mean, it could be like, I know what's this. Oh yeah, it could be a function or a function type, right? So here we assume it's a type alias, right? So, and then if it's not a function, like so if it's type and type, then it should be something like alias food function. Wait. So like, hang on. Yeah, it can have, which can have contract. So otherwise it's a fault, and default is a fault. I'm gonna flatten it in case it's an alias. So it's either function type or function, or it's otherwise it's a fault. Analyze it, and then we get to the contracts. Now we can get like these. Analyze it and get its contract. Here we expect okay, and then maybe it's not a constant fault, you know, it's it might be a return a fault, but it's not a constant fault. In that case, it's also fail. So it could be an empty null fault. So we exclude that. And then otherwise we add it. Now we're done, and we can say set this result the resolved parts. Yeah, that was hopefully a little clearer for someone going into this next time. What's planned for today? So Low Bite Folks was asking. So I don't know. If you want something, want me to do anything special, I'll do that. Otherwise, right now I'm just refactoring code. I just jumped into some part of the code and just see if I saw if I could make it a little clearer. I know this part has been worked on quite a bit. Like it's still complex, but once you read through it, it's not that weird. We have bugs too, I think. Let me have a look. So there is one which is I need to think about it a bit, which is the one where you could where the compiler doesn't complain about the definitions of on C3 I files, which is incorrect, but it takes a lot of work if you're going to compare with every single definition, which is what they want. So you have to look at the type name and so on, and the type, and then the attributes, and see that they are the same, which is quite annoying because I was trying to avoid that. There's an error on rectangle, so the integer rectangle fails. Okay, so we're going to change the rectangle, so that's maybe I don't do that now. Okay, so there are some things here. Target, platform specific properties. Eval not evaluated in the. Okay, so I think I looked at this. Oh right, maybe I can look at this. So okay, there's the this one. I'm just gonna put it to the so it's like the this one 3 3 2 3. So it's about doing stuff. Okay, I have it somewhere on Git. Probably not in the shelf. So here we have it. Show div. Oh, it has this extra thing. Let me talk about things, okay? So there's been a lot of things on my mind. I end up, always end up in various discussions because I'm kind of interested in what, not just about C3, but its language design in general. And there are so many dimensions to consider when you are doing a language. Like let's go to something practical, right? So recently I saw a video, and someone is like, I'm going to write this language, and I'm not going to use C for my compiler, and I'm not going to use anything else. I'm going to write their language, write my compiler. That sounded pretty optimistic to me. Someone saying that, yeah, I'm just going to write the spec, and then I'm just going to implement, the language. So, and then I'll write my actual language. You need an insane amount of time to do that. Like, okay, so John Blodia, there's a compiler with a game for game engine in the game, right? But it's been 12 years. Zig is like what, 10 now. And it doesn't mean that you have to, make it as ambitious, but it does take some time, especially to work out the kinks and then I mean, syntax is the easy part, and then you want kind of everything to work together, but then you also have to, once you do that, you have to think about lowering it and then supporting all the platforms, standard library, blah blah blah. So I mean, a language isn't anything without a standard library, so which is a lot of functions, and you want it cross-platform and so on. And then if you have a language that has, isn't quite C-like, it's even worse because you have to have the VI is not going to be like that great an experience, and then it's just like it's a lot of work. I'm not talking about just the program, but kind of fix things that aren't obviously wrong to begin with. Anyway, it just seems extremely optimistic. Speaking of languages, so Zig, the new thing, like the latest news is like I think what it's called, the Ghosty author donated like $400,000 to Zig, which to me would be a huge amount of money, but I guess like I think Andrew is saying like, oh, I'm just living on this small amount of 150K a year from Zig, and that's like and then it's gonna be like quickly, I mean, it's gonna quickly disappear. So I don't know, but anyway, this kind of money is a two-edged sword. So on one hand, it does help you that you can just concentrate on writing a good language, right? But it's also it doesn't give you a sense of urgency. You don't have any other projects. It's like it's your language. That's your like life. That's your work now. It's not a thing that enables your work, and it's kind of a dangerous mindset that we all who are doing languages kind of risk falling into. That kind of product is never done, and then the product becomes the reason for itself rather than the tool. So if you have a tool, let's say I want a new shovel. I don't want to spend too much time just working on the shovel. I actually want to use it. And something that makes me a bit unhappy these days is that, like, I spend my time working, just making my company kind of survive. Then I go and work on the C3 language, and kind of maybe I like probably get too much involved in discussions, and then I don't have any energy left to work on things in C3 that aren't like, standard library stuff. And you kind of get to a point, at least I'm getting to a point, or this it is nothing new, right? You get to a point where burnout is always something you have to be aware of, right? So I've experienced burnout before. That was pretty horrible. So essentially, I know that at a certain point, when you get too much on your plate, you start getting nothing done. It's because you can't really, muster yourself, your concentration to actually do what you need to be done, that needs to be done, right? So, and every switch you do, mental switch, is also costly and takes quite a bit of energy and concentration. So what happens is that, okay, I have the work, which used to be, when I started this project, I had like, I needed to work about 3 weeks a month to make the company survive. And so I had this week where I could do work on a game or whatever. So, and if I worked more, a month I could have, accumulate several weeks of programming for other projects. But those days are gone now, and having, that means that if I am going to work on something, it's going to be like this context switch. What happens there then is that I know that the only way to kind of get some kind of mileage out of this is to not do, like, try to continue what I was doing, right? I work on the compiler because I was working on the compiler last time, because that's the least amount of preparation and context switching I need to do, because I remember the compiler, what I was working on, and I just fix that and just continue that work. But that creates this inertia when I, maybe I should, I like even something like playing a game, right? I should try this new game or whatever, or work on my game. All of that just becomes, I need to do things. So it's been like the cases when I have to reproduce bugs, where I have to set things up, are very painful, because that's a huge context switch for me. Like, instead of looking at whatever I was doing and just, okay, fix that, it can be done quickly and without messing around. Like, now I have to look up how to do this, set this up, and do that. And it's not hard, it just becomes mentally taxing. So that's sad. Yeah, I know. Mitchell already donated 30K for, but okay. So I guess, I mean, SIG is kind of, it should be done now. Most languages are done in 10 years before you reach 1.0, and I think that SIG is way far behind. It's like, I don't think they can be done in 5, like, if they are given this much money, then they won't be done in 5 years. Because this lack of urgency, right? There's like, okay, we have time, we have people, we have money. Why don't we add something else and like just add to the general, because it kind of becomes the marketing, right? So it's like, oh, if we do these things, we can market that. It kind of becomes bigger and bigger. There is no cost. There is no perceived cost of that. And what do you do when 1.0 comes along? Then, like, that's going to be a big switch there for them, for everyone. So I don't know. I think they lack the urgency to actually succeed, and I don't know what people will do, but Odin is going to be 1.0 in well, I can't say exactly, but I would definitely say within a year, right? Which would be like exactly when it's 10 years old, basically. And Zig is just going ahead and just, there's no end in sight. And so it's a very unique project in that. Very unique project. Because they're not even striving to go for 1.0. And they're like saying, oh, it doesn't matter. You know? Because I was using like Ruby back in the day. What was that? What version was that? Like, it must have been, like, what were the versions of Ruby? Before they got, oh, okay, 0.8, probably 0.8. Right, so that's Ruby, I think it was Ruby, let me look it up. Okay, so I think it was like, okay, no, okay, it was 1.8, right, 1.8. And that was the, you know, that was in 2003. Yeah, that's the one I was using. So, okay, according to here, it looked like Ruby 1.0 was created in, was in 1.0, 96, right? This is to be believed. Okay, so actually Ruby was created in what? It reached 1.0 in like 2 years or so, which is, you know, reasonable for something that was a interpreted language, by the way. So, but anyway, I think 1 decade of Zig has failed to produce Zig 1.0. And of course, I'm thinking about like the same thing for C3. It can't be like 10 years, that's like the end, right? You need to do it in 10 years, otherwise it's like, it's too long. Jai has, you know, it's been too long, but he also made a game. So it's kind of understandable, and it also expanded more than he planned. I think. Jonathan Blow, the one that compared to what Jonathan Blow was planning, he was planning a simpler language basically. I remember him being on some podcast talking about that, like saying, "Oh, I want it to be a simple language. It's not as simple as I wanted it, but I think it's good enough." Something like that, to that effect or something. Don't quote me on that. So anyway, like, is Zig good enough to use? Right now, a lot of people using Zig thinks it's good enough, right? But they keep developing it. So you see, it's a self they created this problem, if you will, themselves, or Andrew, I guess, because he's the chief designer, that it should be like perfect, right? Optimal, perfect. So everyone knows you need to, like, 1.0 is never perfect. If you think that 1.0 can be perfect, then you probably never released anything serious. Because like, very few things survive the contact with the reality of having a huge amount of users in the end. And things that your crowd kind of thought was not important turns out to be important, and so on. So there's not going to be anything perfect about it. So the question is, can it be good enough that you can live with it or not? That's basically the question. But I think Zig doesn't want to have that trade-off. So they're in, like, I think seriously, Andrew needs to think about that. But I mean, C3 will benefit if he doesn't think about that. So I don't care. I don't care. He probably would, like, say that I'm an idiot, because that's how he keeps, like, that's what he basically said on Lobster and so on. Whenever you, like, even things like, I think the thing about when I changed to assigned by default, he wrote this, like, passively aggressive, or actually aggressive, more aggressive than passive aggressive thing about, like, how I was, I did right by accident, and now I was, like, making this foolish mistake that no real language designer would have done. Basically, that's the way he expressed himself. Very special. But yeah. So that's okay. Some all random thoughts. Anyway, I should probably do some. Okay, maybe I can look at what you wrote. So, breaking changes forever and ever in Ziglang. Yeah. So, like, breaking changes in themselves are a fact of life, right? But I think the honest way to think about Zig would be to say that the current version of Zig is, what is it, like? It's supposed to be like 0.16, right? Or is it 0.17 in development? I think, right? I'm not sure. I think it's 0.17 might be in development. I actually made contributions to that one. Yeah. fix. Anyway, so it would be more accurate to call the current version 16.0. And then the next one 17.0. But why isn't it like that? Because it's clearly that, right? It's clearly a version of Zig that you're supposed to use. But is this what is it, Bailey and Motti? That is kind of like, well, you can use it, everyone look at all these people who use it. And then someone says, oh, but to test these bugs. Well, it's not, it's not 1.0 yet, so don't complain about us. Okay, and then like after that, you kind of, oh, and go and use Zig, it's so great, right? So every time you get criticism for it having bugs or breaking changes, then you go back to it's just 0 point something. But then when you want to advertise it, it's like you can use it everywhere. It's so good, it's so great. It's ready for you to use it, and that's kind of the files is called Bailey and Motti or something like that, right? Motti and Bailey, I don't know. So this retreat to so anyway. The honest way to think about Zig is actually there's like the continuous new versions of it, and that's why there are breaking changes, because major changes, there are new major versions, and they're done continuously. They just don't want to own up to it, basically, that they are thinking of it as one point, like something that can be used in production. The thing is, it's not ready for production. It's more of a getaway free card that they use when they need it. Anyway, let's see here. So it's wait till there. Okay, the interesting thing about Zig, right? I think the interesting thing about Zig is that actually the language hasn't changed that much. Okay, so if you look at back, I think it's like 0.2 or something. I don't remember which one was like when it kind of solidified. But the overall syntax then hasn't really changed that much. So it's still like the same things, the same ideas with like while loops and for loops and those things that we kind of associate with Zig, the whole thing with expression based, and it's kind of the pieces of Zig was already there. Error handling and so on, it just the try and so on, they came very early. And what they're doing now is basically rewriting the standard library over and over again. Doing new things to the standard library, so everyone has to update everything because the standard library is new. But the language itself, and then they do the tooling, of course. The tooling is changing, and then they have these what they call built-ins that are actually kind of, we don't want to make the language more complex, so we call it the built-in, but it's actually a feature, a language feature that we are hiding with the built-in. They're fiddling with that, tweaking those. I think it's like 0.14 that he changed everything, like from the more reasonable cost syntax I didn't like, but it was made sense, to the one that we used inference everywhere, which didn't make sense to me, but they like that. So so there are these tweaks, but overall the language is there. So it's not that complex. The language itself is not super complex, but the standard library and the compiler and the tool chain around it, that one has a lot of complexity. It's like, I think talk about like over 500,000 lines of code, right, for the compiler and stuff around it, and compare that to C3 is something like 70,000 lines of code, and I think Odin is around the same amount, and Jai as well. So we're not talking about Jai being huge. It's like it has all these features, but it just around 70-80K lines of code. But then we have like Rust, which has like 1 million or something, and then Zig, which are like 500, 600, I don't know, pretty big. But then again, Zig is written in Zig, Rust is written in Rust, and Odin and Jai is written in C++, and the C3 compiler in C, which seem to be like maybe, you know, no, I don't think Jai is about 100K. I was surprised when I heard the numbers, but okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I heard some small, very low numbers. So actually, what's growing the C3 code base is not so much features now. It's like, oh, let's track these, get some better error messages. So I pass around stuff just to give some better error messages and stuff like that. Things like that. Or support for some, more backends means more front-end support. Some of the project things that are being added, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, C3 has enough features. No, I don't want to add anything more now. Right? There are some like where I can, I need to remove stuff if I want to add things. So there's this feature. Let me go and show you that. So the requested feature does make sense, but maybe not. Okay, so if you would do like this, so you have a for, and then you have like an I for I equals 0, and then it's this less than 10, and then you decided you wanted to generate variables inside. Now, if you generate a variable inside here, like x, so the problem is going to be like you're going to generate 10 of them. So how do you get around that? Now, one way to get around that is actually to use this. So, okay, let me just show that this fails. Right. And I just going to explain why it could be useful, why it might not be. So okay, oh, sorry. So I got like 2 x, which also is like a little crazy. Anyway, so what if I could do a val? May I use like this format? X as the as the name. Isn't it? No, it's printf, right? I don't remember anymore. But let's say we could do that. Or actually, you can do so. I can do this. Expand, and then I do like printf int x as equals I, right? And then I do I like this, like this. Now this should create these pictures correctly. Oh, okay. I'm using this without a standard library. Let's add the standard library. Oh, I did use it. What's wrong? Oh. Okay. Like this. Should work. So this works, right? But the proposal was to be like int x and no, a val, you know, I can make the name here. So I create the string name is printf access, right? So like that. So in this case, for example, I can do, you know, IO println val name. That would work fine. So this works. Right. But the suggestion is to let this work. So basically I put this as a in this position. So it's allowed now in some positions, but not in that position. So what we have here, let me grab that on the shelf. Then if we run this, okay, recompile. Oh. Oh, wait. What? Okay, clearly. Clear, I didn't think this through. How does this even happen? Okay, echo name. Maybe it's just not copied correctly. Most probably. Yeah. So this doesn't work because it's not complete. But that was the idea. But then you could always do the expand. The question is if the expand is not, you know. Maybe it is. There's, you know, quite a bit of. The reason why I did why I wanted to expand is that there are some things that you do always, right? Were simple things, but then as we get further and further outwards from the normal, you kind of get, okay, yeah, I want continue, right? I want break. I want, you know, maybe some go to. I want reverse for each. I want this and that. And as you do that, it can just expand until the meta language is big enough to contain the entire runtime language, right? Or more. So I was hesitant to add expand actually, but kind of as you see, there it has its uses, right? So it has is this okay? It's like C3. You know, if Zig did like C3, what would happen? And if you did something like in Zig that you just had some variable that you never used, would be that you could write unused, suit, okay, unused, and it would work. So that's like the C3 way, I guess. Like, okay, there's a rule. Like there's a rule against, you know, using the var like this, but you can say like safe infer, and then it's kind of okay, right? It was safe infer, right? So if you really want to override it, yeah, you can do that. Because this is like I can't assume that I know that in all cases that this has to be like a strict hard rule. So there are ways out of it, like the safe macro, where you can kind of hide stuff so it looks like a function, because you want it to, for people to kind of use it to think of it as a function and stuff like that. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's see here. C backend will be neat, yeah. J community week says 87 lines of code. That's a 2021. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to try to improve this. We have the. You know, there is going to be this param struct too, the one that creates a struct for from a function that contains its fields as arguments. So some things that should be available, but some just through this, you know, expand. And then the thing that people wanted was to make a switch at compile time, right? So you would do like, imagine you had like switch over A, and then you had like for each, which is like super reasonable, right? So for each something I equals 1, and then you had like put the bar or in plus, so oh no, not for each, 4. And then you had created your case statements like a case I, and then do something, right? And that was completely reasonable. So we have like return I, right? Then you would do an N4. Like, this is completely reasonable, I think. But the problem with this is that now inside of here we're doing kind of different parsing. So these are not normal statements, or this one isn't a normal statement the way I work with it. So then we would have two versions of all of these things, which one would act on the statements and one would act on these things. And was, at least when I was looking at it, the way it works in the compiler would be a bit annoying. So then you can, even if it doesn't happen, maybe it happens, but even if it doesn't happen, you can kind of use then the expand to make it happen. Right, because the expand version isn't hard. You just create that thing at compile time, which is fairly straightforward. So it's not going to be particularly efficient, but I mean, if you do it once, right? If you do it every time, you have a macro that just keep creating that, it's going to be bad. And there's this is a difference between C3 and Zig and Jai. Is that Jai was created for always doing all these runtime and compile time execution things all the time. Zig was not, but the standard library was. And so C3 also is not, but the standard library isn't designed to use it everywhere. So I do think that Zig is in a bad place here, and will get worse as the because the mechanism, right? So the mechanism in Zig to create new generic things is to have these functions, and you keep on adding compile time functions everywhere just to generate things, and everything is like through there. So it's a natural thing to kind of build things in a lot of what C3 would say were macros, but Zig thinks of as compile time functions. And as you do that, the binary bloat is just going to like go off the charts. People are seeing this with Zig, and they're like, "Oh, that's not no problem." But we're already seeing that in C3, and it's a problem, right? So it's already a problem when you do look at the hash implementations that become very, very, very big. Yeah, but I don't know, maybe I should fix that. I had some other idea that I could do. Whatever that was. Okay, anyway, I'll ask, is Zig doomed? Not necessarily. It's just not going to be like, look at Swift. Okay, so in my opinion, it didn't like it set up to be like something that compiles faster in C++, a better C++, basically. And they had all these ideas about it, and then it ended up Swift being slower than C to compile in C++, and slower than Objective-C that they were trying to, fix. But Apple pushed it out, and now everyone is. If I want to go and get a consultant gig doing iOS development, people are saying like, yeah, we assume you use Swift UI, and I feel like using Swift AI is like gag reflex for me. It's all the Swift stuff. I haven't kept up with it because it makes me so incredibly annoyed knowing what replaces. So the APIs, Apple APIs, have gotten like so much worse to use from Objective-C as they are kind of digging into, we have to use Swift. People, engineers at Apple, when Swift was released, they were very, very reluctant to use Swift, but they were forced to, basically. So the dynamics of what programming language you use is not very based on the quality of stuff. So you could very, very well end up like Zig winning without ever being any good. And actually, you just have to create the enough inertia and clout to make people think that this is the next thing, that obviously you need to use this. So there's that way for Zig to kind of succeed. So but I think the difficult thing for Zig is like, okay, Zig has been surfing. This is something they don't want to admit. Like if you go to Zig Discord, they are saying this is not true. But Zig showed up in 2016. That was after Jonathan Blow really created a lot of hype around his language. People were eager to look at like what could C alternatives look like. And Zig was like, okay, let's do a low, like less ambitious Jai. Andrew Kelly's take on Jai. And you could play with it. So people could use it. Right? What happens? So you drum up a lot of interest in programming languages. I had this interest. I was watching Jonathan Blow's stuff. And then you have someone, releasing something that is similar. It's like now you can't do that now. There are so many alternatives now. So that's another thing. But that was the only one. That was like the Zig winning thing, I'll say. You could use it. And that gave it a lot of, and that was also, it managed to hit the time before computer magazines were completely gone. So they got some, attention, something was written about them, and that got them into Wikipedia and stuff like that. So when V came out, that was in 2019, I think. Like V was just vaporware, right? But Zig was the only one that was, running everything on contributions. Odin wasn't, right? C3 wasn't there yet. I was just playing, fooling around at that time. But that was the big thing. And then V came out, says like, oh, we're doing this, like we're doing magic, right? So you're gonna get like something that's so much faster. We're promising things that's, people were hyped, just like they were hyped about Zig, because Zig made a lot of promises, like, oh, it's faster than C. It's like, that's a lie, but it's like Trumpism, where you can lie as much as you want, it doesn't matter because we're post-truth anyway. So, and V just turned that up to like, Zig has made huge claims that he couldn't really cash in, but V just made ludicrous claims. But you got a lot of people interested and actually donating to V. So V was basically stealing Zig's hype from them. So Andrew was very, very, very upset at the time. But of course, V was a scam. V was a scam. V was a scam. In the sense that it didn't do anything that it promised, like it wasn't possible. But you have a language now. The compiler was just like originally, but and it was, all the claims were overstated or just plain wrong, right? But you see that happening. Like, it's not unique in that it's like making claims, but it was very, very successful in doing that because it offered also a nice syntax, like a very scripty like syntax that people liked. So I think that the most successful part of V, outside of the claims, is that created this. It had a syntax that kind of hit the sweet spot for a lot of people. Anyway, so that was kind of stealing some of Zig's thunder. And in fact, I think like the V and Zig at some point in time had about as much, money coming in from Patreon and stuff like that, or very close anyway. So I think like honestly, I think that Andrew was very afraid that Zig would kind of lose their donations, since that's the whole point of, like, he just went all in it. If it didn't succeed, then he was, he lost everything. But then, of course, V just died. But this kind of hype thing, that's what people buy into. There's a promise, and it doesn't matter if it, because people can take it as like a bet. Okay, I'm going to be first doing this. I'm betting on this. I get reputation from doing this early and so on. So if you get people to kind of buy into this hype, then it can succeed anyway. It's like getting this momentum that brings it forth, even though it's people know it's not true. Usually, that is by also having advertising. Like they were, I mean, Java, Microsoft's products, they've all been using advertising to also further push that thing. But basically, you have to describe your product as kind of an inevitable, revolutionary, making a huge step, and people have to have these testimonials of how they changed their lives, and they now, lost 50 pounds and are doing a healthy lifestyle and can program 300,000 times faster than before. Like a little like that, that kind of, we have to get onto this hype train, just like we have the AI hype train, which is like the very recent one. But all of those hype trains, they happen all the time. I'm saying that as being like pretty old now, and seeing this happening, and I mean everyone knows that this is happening, right? So anyway, if you get this kind of buy-in, like people are betting on it, then it's then they will also want this to succeed because they already bet on it, right? So I had a talk with a person. I don't need to mention the company, but he was looking at both Odin, Zig, and C3. Kind of, should I bet on any of these? And I'm doing this tool, and like, and I had a very frank conversation with him, and like, you can do whatever you want and so on. And he was saying like, oh, maybe I'll bet on Zig. I've tried Zig. It didn't give me anything, positive actually. Actually, I think it's benefits that are claimed seem very weird. Weirdly, I don't see it, but it has the most momentum, so we're probably going to go with that, right? So it's like the rather than believing his own, judgment, he believed what was the most hype. So that is how things can win without necessarily being the best. That was long-winded, sorry about that. I think, okay, so as I think what makes Zig unique is that the compiler that allows out-of-the-box cross-compilation without losing access to system libs. Have you used C3? So cross-compilation isn't really hard on once you're on LLVM. You just need to do the extra work. I've offered actually Ginger Bill, to work on getting cross-compilation for Odin. Those things I did for this was before. Now there are more things that Mono added, but just get the cross-compilation working on Odin so that Odin can cross-compile to Windows and Mac OS. But he said like, no, I'm not interested. It's not necessary. Actually, people don't do that too often. That's not what I need anyway. So he didn't do that, but I'm just saying that C3 does that. It's not a unique thing about Zig. Actually, even V does that. Even you have like, you can cross-compile with V. So out of the box. I didn't believe that, but I tried it. Of course, you can cross-compile with V. So it's not that you can't cross-compile out of the box with other languages that are recent. But Zig markets itself as this is their thing, so that no one else does this, but except they do, right? It's faster than C, except it's not. It's, overstating things. It's the Zig way, and that gives them a lot of. I think I don't like that. I really think that it's. I react more strongly to this than Ginger Bell because I actually discussed this with him. I think it's a fundamentally dishonest way of marketing, like overstating your stuff, like saying, "Oh, I solved it." They solved a sink, right? It's colorless, solved a sink, but except it didn't work, and they had to change it. And now it's they color the whole IO. So claims like that, but it's the thing about, you can, if you just care about pushing your stuff, then you can do this. It's very simple. You make a claim. If someone challenges it, you can back off, but people will not listen to that, that rebuttal. Like 100% will hear you say, "Oh, C3 is faster than C." And then some people will hear, like, someone challenges that, prove that. No, maybe it's not. Like, it could be. And then maybe 10% hears that. So 90% just goes away thinking, "Let's C3 is faster." And then they will push this around to everyone else that they hear. So that you can rely on the first thing that you push being the thing that people believe. So you can do that in order to create a vision of a product that is not really matching what the product does, without actually doing that much lying. Can C3 really cross-compile from any platform to any other? No. Okay, so there are two parts of an cross-compilation. One is to cross-compile just being able to create those, instructions, creating those object files. Then the second part is, of course, and linking, right? And linking those. But the second part is getting the right files to link to. So getting the linker set up to link correctly. And there's this funny thing called Linux, which has distributions, and the distributions control where what you can link with and where things are, which makes Linux a hell to play around with. So the way you can get around with that is using Musl as statically link that, but then there are problems with that. So Linux is cross compilation to Mac OS. Yes. Right now for C3 you have to grab, because of license reasons, you have to grab a version of the SDK from someone's Mac, put it in your folder, and then it works. Of course, if you're on Mac, that doesn't matter, but you can, move that to your build machine, and then the build machine can also compile for Mac OS. For Windows, it just works. From any platform to Windows. Then we have Wasm, which kind of works, but that's not. It's not an issue. Just give us the sources and we compile it for our distro. So, yeah, Linux. Yeah. This is why, like, I have this for Linux. It's like there's this talk by Linus, and he talks about, like, okay, and then he gets a question like, when will be the the year of the Linux on desktop, and it says like basically talks about they need to get their shit together. It can't be, yeah, maybe it's a Debian config. It's like it's your fault. Basically, they break everything all of the time, and it's just the situation is when I try to like I'm using a Mac, right? So I'm not really. I've used like I use Linux for deployment and have running all the servers on that, but it's like I didn't understand the amount of insanity. Yeah, like on Linux, that's like, yeah, it's there. And every time you talk about it, well, you don't know where those things are, and you can't be sure about where the linker and what kind of libc you have, and you can't rely on. No, that's not a problem, and you should compile from source anyway. Like, yeah, but how do you make a product or a game or something? Well, I know, it just blows my mind. Anyway, Vasm, yeah, yeah, Linux's stable API is a Win32. It's been stated many times. I mean, yeah, it's just I don't know. So, anyways, Linux is a hard thing, right? Anything else we could fix. There is no like what I want to have later. Of course, it can be done now, but being able to compile for various consoles, stuff like that, it would be really nice. But maybe that's just possible if you have like C. I compile to C that, which you pass on to whatever compiler requires. But yeah, I am in cross compilation. That's fine. I mean, that's you have the LVM at the bottom. That's the same thing as Zig does. I mean, Zig uses LVM. It used the LVM linker, same as C3, right? And then the thing that made it special was that it also bundled libclang and then also compiled those compiler RT, so runtimes for the various platforms, and then the grab some kind of libc. So it's it's yeah. Anyway, so no, not to every platform right now. You can create object files for every platform that we support in the compiler. Linking, yes, if you have, but you need to supply the, like, if you can supply the all the stuff to the linker, then we're fine. You can cross compile. So here's a funny thing, of course. Zig kind of cheated with Windows. So they are using the MinGV, or is your MinV, or how do you call it? That that set of headers and libraries, because that one is free, right? So you can link to those, which should be reverse engineered from the MSVEC sources. However, they're not always up to date. 2 can have bugs. So they are not really linking with real MSVC, so because they are not really caring about Windows users that much. Whereas for C3, we actually grab the real ones from Windows from Microsoft. So we're going to get like the 100% compatibility, for better or worse. So yeah. So yeah, I mean the cross compilation thing. I know Zig is not unique in that at all, but they like to say they are. There's this video by Andrew from, let's see here. Andrew Kelly. Okay, so by 2021, at that point, so 5 years ago, Andrew Kelly announced that he solved the Linux distribution problem, and that 2021 was like the year of the Linux gaming desktop. It's just that he got like 90% of the way or something, and then he claimed that no, it's just gonna fix that, and then it didn't work. So it's like the so that's why like he got a lot of attention from that, which I felt was that's a kind of a there's this, let's see if I can paste this. So we have like this from Andrew, but anyway, so we claims, and then you don't need to really go through with it, just create this attention. Unfortunately, that's possible, but Zig has some problems. Like if you go into problems, so like not getting to 1.0, that's like a very, very, very big problem for them. So that's one thing. Two, they have no reason to reach 1.0. Because what are you going to do after that? There's no plan. No, it's according to Andrew, that's like when Zig is going to be pristine and perfect, like which will never happen. And what will they do then when they don't have this compile to fill with? They don't have this kind of exit plan. So that's a problem for them as well. And the fact that they are kind of unsure of a lot of features that should have been gelled by now, and they keep on experimenting and say like, oh, this is a good thing, right? So that's they should be done by now, basically. So like now, oh, iOS is a new good thing, but actually this should be figured out earlier than this. So okay, I don't know. So in a serious problems with this creator's mentality. I don't know what that means. Zig inspires trust for the future. Yeah, so you can have like a language which creates a vision, and Zig certainly does that, and Andrew is like he's not obviously that, but he's a very good speaker and very much able to kind of bring his enthusiasm for his language through. So this interview that was very heavily scripted with JetBrains, for example, people are like, oh, he's such a nice guy, he's such a, has such doesn't care about money and stuff like that. At the same time, he admitted like having at least like a what was 150K a year. And that's not small change. That's not, oh, I'm just doing this for and don't care about money. That's quite a bit of money. And it's also not acknowledging the other competitors in same space. That's a typical, like, he pretends to be this nice guy, but he kind of isn't, or he kind of sees himself as a good guy maybe, but he kind of isn't really that. But he projects so nicely, and he makes people believe him. So he's very good at that. And in a sense, that's a strength. There's a really downside to having someone like me or even Bill as authors, because we don't do that great job selling the product, and we're doing a bad service for users. So this is I try to make the language good, right? But I'm also giving the service actually that I should also provide to the users is making this a language that evokes interest, because that's how users can get more use out of the language. Basically, you can trust me in this, like you trust me on my design decisions, you use the language, but you need me to kind of tell people, like, present the language. I'm doing a great job at that. I mean, even right now, I'm just like writing down on Android a little Zig. That's not the way to do it. But anyway, so the good thing, like what Andrew does, like creating this enthusiasm, and it's very important for a language to succeed, because as this brings interest to the language, this can also, make it long-term viable, right? So users that actually invest time in it will get that back. But then there are problems, with if it ever releases 1.0 as well. Okay. Okay, so let me look at this. Okay, Odin has been developing whims, criticism, features, going for was kind of personal thing. I don't know. That's his style, I guess. I like to discuss things a lot. So I guess that's what happens. If you are on the Discord, you know that I have discussions. Some, like, after I have the discussions, like 4 or 5 times the same discussion, I get a little bored of that. Like, oh, you should change. You should allow types to be in like any case. Like, you should be able to have any type, right, in any way, right? Lowercase or uppercase, all uppercase, whatever. And like after explaining for the what feels to me like the millionth time, but it's not possible for the lexer to work, or the parser to work, if that was the truth. So it can't do it. And then having that discussion, someone else not believing me and thinking that I'm just doing that to be mean. But I was, kind of like the discussions. So, okay, you say, so C3 has some real nice features. TurboFish just writing this up. But for example, the way methods are defined is a bit strange to me. For this reason, I consider C3 niche. Okay, so the way methods are defined are like in C++, right? So it's not super niche. I would say it's kind of normal. But C3 doesn't have a declaration where you declare like the basic variables and then extend. And then implement it, just one thing. So for C3 has this idea of extensions, right? So you can keep on extending whatever you have. It doesn't work with the idea like Zig does or like Java does, where you find the methods inside of the declaration, because we also can add methods to type defs, and you can add methods to enums, and like where would those go, and primitive types. So it's a very bad fit trying to like push it into there, and also it doesn't fit with the idea of being extensible all the time. So it's about, extending, very, very extensible. And I know Zig is the other way around, just one package things like this is all that matters in this, all the things that a type can do. And C3 is very different. But the syntax is not that weird, since it came from C2 originally, but it's very, very natural extension of what C++ already does. So it's not, I don't think that's very strange. Odin has a bad karma stealing blows ideas. If we're talking about stealing blows ideas, then Zig should just go and die. That's a very bad karma, because it was actually, it stole a lot. So Odin has, what's the context, right? And the syntax, which was actually not from John's talks originally. That's from Sean Barrett, which in turn has this from, I don't know, Rob Pike. Someone came up with that dot and dot equals thing. And then other than that, maybe runtime information or runtime reflection of data. That's also in Jai. But I think what made John he stopped, he started demoing his language at some point, and I'm pretty damn sure that was about Zig. Because Zig was basically saying, "Oh, we're doing compile time stuff," and they were doing compile time like Jai, but much more constrained. And then people were saying, "Ooh, this is a new language. This is, it's this unique compile time doing," and it was all nicked from Jai. So I think that if we're talking about stealing, I think both Zig and Odin did it, got inspired, but it's very, 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 very wrong to just say that this is an Odin thing. Being inspired by things are fine. I mean, definitely looked at John's stuff. I was really happy when he did the macros, and I saw that it wasn't like I just completed macros for C3, and it's like, and it took a long time to kind of figure out how I wanted them to work. And then I was really scared that John would do it the same way, because then it would feel very much like a ripoff, but fortunately not. So, but I mean, I've borrowed things from Odin, definitely. There are things in C3 from Odin. There used to be things from Zig in C3, but I removed all of them because they were really bad. So, but I think like if you look at Jai and Zig and Odin, and Jai and Zig is very much in one. To me, like in one aspect, Jai and Zig is in one place, and Odin is in the other, because when we look at the IDEs, how the IDEs are going to be, handling these things with very much compile time code gen, then Zig and Jai are very much in the same spot and very, very much not intended for clever IDEs. Now, I don't know how important that's going to be in the future because of the AIs or LLMs, but Odin's very much just doing things at prime time. Okay, anyway, so let's see. And results like either or a wounded deer. Okay, not professional. Why are the outside? Okay, so having everything in one block. Rename a few stuff and have something new with. I don't understand that idea. But that would be superior. And that means everything is like indented one extra step too, which just makes everything indented more. I mean, I know Zig is kind of like, you know, running towards the right border. I very much dislike that. I like my code more flat. So, I mean, I use a lot of Java, so I'm definitely used to having the methods inside, you know, defined inside. But C3 isn't like a method-oriented thing. It's not OO like Zig. And I'm saying OO in very loose terms here. So more of a I think it's even like it's probably I'm sure it's much easier to get people in the right mindset with Odin because it just has functions. So for C3 it's kind of like in between, but I don't have static methods. I don't have static variables or static constants. You don't put things in there. This is not for organization like in Zig or C++ or Java. So struct is a struct. It's more like C, right? So putting stuff inside of there, that's not very C-like. So it's more C-like to have, look here's this function and just has a namespace on it. So in C-line with CW, you copy a struct in all methods. Yeah, but you shouldn't have that many methods in C3. So it's probably good that, I mean, you can definitely do that if you want. Do a copy of all those related functions. I mean, it does work for C++, does it? Doesn't it? So there is no problem here. Actually, so, and you shouldn't write methods. You shouldn't be writing methods. I mean, you shouldn't need to copy big things like that. This is a very OO thing to do. I know, understand, but okay, it was an example of why methods in the struct. Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't like. Okay, you have the struct, but what do you do if you have a type def my ID, which is an int, and I want to add a function? Now here we can do like my ID next, right? And then we can do return self plus my ID. Something. Okay, it's one. Okay, so here I added the we have my ID. Maybe I should allow that to be right like this, right? So where do I put these? Where should I put? Should I have like, oh, let's have a, you know, this would be insane. Do stuff in here, adding methods. So it's a very you know, there's like closed versus open, or you know, some, like if you have Objective-C or Swift or a lot of these, you can have extension methods, right? So there's no need to have something special for extension methods, because all things in C3 is basically extension methods. So adding something like you declare it in something, I know this, you know, you can definitely do it, but it's not the way I want people to think about types, really. Or types in C3, right? Because you end up with having like these ideas of where you kind of package things like in OO. And actually, there are several things, like I haven't even fixed these in C3, and just keep it very, very minimal with the methods. Like there's no visibility, no private nor local visibility for methods. So that doesn't make sense, right? Because of course you would have visibility. No, in C3, if you want that, you create some function and then you call that. You can put that local on that or private on that. And that seems insane, but it isn't if you think of it as a primarily functional, not functional, procedural language with methods tacked on for certain tasks. So if you think of it as mainly object-oriented, like Zig, then of course you want to have this, you know, encapsulated thing that you are, where you hide all your stuff, and then you can just pick out things. But C3 is like public by default. It's like C. You think of it like C, not like Java. So, or C++. So it's very different from Zig in that regard. So kind of it's very hard to kind of get people out of this mindset. Let me show you. So what we tend to do is, like, we have a struct, so a game, and the game might contain, you know, for example, a list of you know, monster, list of players, list of missiles. All right, and then people want to do something like game, and then we're gonna, you know, game init something, and then game run. Right, and that's the whole thing. And this is bad, because now we just, so we can set these, right? But the thing was right. So because now, if, like, probably somewhere in the run, we're gonna iterate of the list, and then we're gonna call the monsters. So we're gonna be like, let's have something like monster update, you know, something like this, because I mean, obviously this is how things should be, you know. And then you have player update, and everything is just going through. This is a bad design. It requires, for example, monster for it to update. The monster generally will need to look like struct monster, and then it will have to have like a back game, right? or you would have to pass the game here. Maybe the list of players, the game, maybe like this. Right, so we have this complex network where either you have it in here, maybe you have stuff in here. So you have like a monster track, tracking, and then if you want to update that one, you have to go, the game has to go into the monster and then do something or something. This idea is like, this is, here we have an active thing, which is a monster. It's an active thing that updates itself. That's kind of a mindset, right? So we have this active data, which is kind of like a small robot that kind of does its stuff. That's object-oriented design, where we think of like everything as a small component that can update itself, and that's then how you get, managed state. Okay, so there are state inside of this, so you kind of take state and then you split the state into 1,000 pieces, basically. But the other way is to kind of say that, okay, the struct only, it's just a position or something in the graphics. So it's just data. It never has any functions. It's just like, okay, we have, a position where it's blah, 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 blah. And then instead of, doing this, we'll have a game, maybe a game. So init game. Run game. I don't know if you instinctively see this differently, but for me it's very, very different. Because here we're not making game the focus of this. We don't have like, it's the single focus, and through this web of objects, everything is understood. Here's just some data. So here's the data structure. We're going to run the game. Here's the storage for the data that you're going to have to, manage. That's what this says. Whereas here it says like, okay, game, run yourself. So this is OO. And this is procedural. And this is superior when it comes to not having to make any architecture. So here you don't make any architectural design. You don't need to do anything, but think about anything. Just have this, okay, init, that's where the init is going to be. We're going to put some data, like some struct. Maybe we can have globals. It doesn't matter. Maybe we don't even need this. Maybe you have a global outside. It doesn't matter, right? We don't need to do anything. Like it could be this, and we just remove this, right? We don't care. We don't care about the architecture, overall architecture. We don't need to be doing anything, connect things, because the run game is going to do everything for us. It's going to contain all the, it's going to like have this data, pick up what it wants, and do things to it. Here it's different. Here we initialize the game, and we say like everything is contained inside of this game struct. That's all that is. The whole world is there. So it's like a thread, right? So it's like a thread that's going to run itself, right? And then run it, and it's going to do magic with the data it has. Whereas here we don't say anything. So we don't have any bias. This is biasless, and this has a bias, strong bias towards putting things in a tree, and where the game is the top of the tree, and then the game kind of runs things recursively. And this can be flat. And this can be like, this is recursive thinking. Okay, I went out now. Okay, so sorry. I didn't see what you wrote. So okay. Private and local makes sense. Then static for functional. It's funny that the compile gave me a warning when I put up public for a method, and even though they're all public. Yeah. No visibility things. The ultimate test for language will see where if Ryan adopt to use language in 2003. Okay. Right. I don't know. Anyway, so it's UK is okay. Composability over entire. Okay, interesting area. Blah, blah. Okay, so best part of yeah, I mean, simpler the better, right? So okay, one person found methods when dealing with which is the yeah. So you can kind of use methods if you want to, match some API as well. That's I mean it's made for kind of getters and setters and adding like vector dot vector or something, those kind of things. Because you run out of symbols otherwise, and you don't want the like weird symbols. Okay. I didn't get. I talked a lot, so I had some idea what I was going to do, though. Well, like I started doing this eval, but like I don't know. I like you talk about this eval thing. So the question is if it's valuable enough, or if you can just use. I was thinking like maybe adding it, but then it's like the eval thing. So having like int eval x equals 1. I think this will work actually. This print and right, this works in this particular branch here. But we have classic. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't have that feature. What else? Let me have a look here. So optional not. Okay, that was not done. Aren't there any bugs? Okay, there's some. Okay, that's interesting. I think like there's one thing, or there are two features that could go into C3. Speaking of features, one is tagged unions. The other one is, what was it? It won't happen this version, but here, so something like a loose idea. Let's see, it's a loose idea. Oh, defer address. Yes. So this. I know what should be like, but this, because it does remove the deferred boilerplate a bit, and you can put it inside of a function, so you can do like, let's say you have something else. So you have a food function, and then you want to have pass a create food, but then this food should be destroyed after. Then you can do it like this instead of having to do it like foo destroy. So making it a single thing. Of course, for some cases, you can just do, like for a mutex, for example, if you already have a mutex, then you can do, we have this mutex m, and then we have m, or we have init. Now let's say we already have mutex. Okay, so I have some mutex, so we have mutex lock, and then defer mutex unlock, something like that, and then do something in mutex. We also have mut inlock. I don't know, inlock, right? Like this. So you can do this, and then you have all your code inside, which I think is very nice. It's better than doing defer, but it doesn't. Not necessarily always a good thing. So the other thing would be like lock, and you would have release here. I don't know, something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. Probably like this. And that will be the same as this and this, except the scope, of course. So, well, thoughts. Speaking of jobs, Nir, so, well, I have this, currently I have this consultant job that it just pays me enough to make the, pay the bills barely, which is actually going like I'm on a minus now. Not nice thing, so. Then I have this C3 development on top of that, and I would like to use C3 for my game. So that, like the game, I talked about this in the beginning, like context switching, but I really would like to get started with that. Maybe stream something with that in mind. Anyway, I had started with some things, starting to convert things from the C++ code to C3, but I didn't remember. I really couldn't find it again. You have to start again. What belittle? Turbofish, I do not know what you are talking about there. Maybe I missed something. Belittle. Okay, I don't know. Maybe Turbofish already left. So can't really explain what Mount might belittle. Okay, I don't know. Oh, it was something. Well, Turbo, if you do you have any other questions? I'm happy to answer anything you wonder about design-wise. So like I'd like to explain my design. Okay, it was belittling. Okay, I don't know what. There are a lot of people actually out there who like to say bad things about case inventory. You should go to like C++ Discord, and they're like, well, we know better. You should do, classic OO. That's the only way. Yeah, but anyway, that was just. Hope everyone is fine. Be happy. Be nice to each other. But Torbe, did you have any other questions you want to ask? Well, I wouldn't say Ryan. Ryan would probably he's kind of outspoken about C being better. So I don't know. Maybe probably not. I mean, Ryan and Ryan and Casey, they are kind of closer to Ginger Bell than I am. They probably, I mean, I welcome criticisms. I don't really mind, as long as it's reasonable criticism. I kind of get annoyed when people say like, oh, C3, it's just C with weird syntax, and I go like, what? Oh, someone said that recently, like, well, C3 isn't interesting because it's just like C, but with different syntax. It's like, okay, but the other features, but then I get a bit annoyed. Like, yeah, it's fine to criticize C3, but just the makeup stuff. Yeah, but I think, I mean, talking about Odin, I think Odin is going to be like in a very stable position, at least soon. I mean, as I said like earlier here, I think there's going to be like 1.0 coming very, very soon for Odin. And that means it's kind of adoptable by companies, right? You don't adopt something that is 0 point something if you're not risk taker. But 1.0, that's okay. And there's something else. What was? Let's think about that. What was that? Oh yeah, we talked about Zig before, and like the chances. I forgot to add something about Jai. So I think the out of C3 and Zig and Odin, I think the one that actually is has like the most to lose on a Jai being released is Zig. And I would like to explain that reasoning, because I just like to talk about these things because I think of them so much. So look, Zig is very, very strongly driven by attention and hype, right? So, and hype is not always a bad thing, right? Because everything will eventually kind of catch some interest, and that means there's something interesting about it, right? So that doesn't matter, right? But Zig had the most attention, and then it kept that attention, right? Because it's the most, it's already the biggest, right? There's one coming first, and that gets the most attention. Especially given that Andrew is also very good at marketing, right? Marketing his language, and he's just creating this vision of a better world where everyone is programming Zig, the perfect language. Which there are no perfect languages. That's what the yoke is. Okay. Anyway, so then here comes Jai, which is basically the original, but this is like, I mean, it's been 12 years, over a decade now, right? And people won't remember this, but still, that's the original thing. Now, when Jai is released, like the thing that people have been saying to kind of put down Jai is like, well, it doesn't exist because it's just a few people have access to it. That's, to me, it's like a silly talk. It's like it's an excuse to not to promote whatever language. Like it's that scope, okay. But anyway, so they have been saying that it's not here, you can't use it. That's why people shouldn't try it. think about or talk about it. Please don't talk about it because it's vaporware. Anyway, when it's released, and I'm sure it's going to be, then it's going to take up a lot of interest. It's like there's so much pent up. Everyone will want to try Jai. Why? Because people have been talking about Jai and either said, oh, it's nothing, right? Or it's like, we can't look at this, right? We can't look at this right now. But that means when it comes along, everyone will want to look at it to see if it was really better or not. So there's a lot of interest already. And John is very, very well known. People will want to try this language. Like it got more interest than Zig originally, and now it can just, when it's released, people will just jump at it. It's just, that's just gonna happen, right? Everyone will try it out. That's not say it will be successful, but that's what will happen, right? And now what happens if people start comparing Jai to the other languages? Now, there's, like I said, there's one language, like Jai has a very, very strong focus on compile time stuff. And Zig also, right? That's the big thing. Just Jai does more, can do more. One of the things I recently saw that I forgot, I know I've seen this before, but I forgot about it. But the way Jai does error handling or trying to push some better errors out of their compile time stuff is that it can store where things were called, right? So if you call something, say you have like this dynamic add method, right? Polymorphic add. Then you can check inside of that add method, compile time method. You can check that everything can add. If it can't inside, you can issue a compile time warning, which is kind of go outside into that calling place and be issued at the calling location, not from within the macro. And that's very important for being able to track down where the problem is. Zig doesn't have that, and C3 doesn't have that either, but it uses contracts. So with the contracts, you can do the same thing, basically. Less flexible, but also more declarative. So it can becomes more of a documentation. But C3 kind of has a similar ability, but Zig doesn't, right? And Odin has different mechanisms, so that's it doesn't have that kind of compile time stuff that you need to worry. So it doesn't need to worry about that in the same way. So just from this part, Zig is doing much worse in kind of error handling their compile time stuff. And then we look at just compile times where Jai is really fast and Zig is very slow. Zig is slow compared to C3, compared to Odin. And it kind of kept doing like this. Oh, it's not so fast now, but this relies on a lot of caching and setting up things up front. So when people are going to compare what Jai does compared to Zig, it's like Zig is going to look like nothing interesting at all, right? It doesn't have any features. And the compile time stuff is going to be like, okay, it's so much easier to do the compile time stuff in Jai, and you get so much better error handling and so on. And then if you look at Odin is just playing with the Jai system. It doesn't have it also has all these built-in types, no operator overloading, no compile time, just different. In Jai you can kind of define methods. They're kind of like overloads. If I remember, if I saw correctly, okay, so they kind of can do it. more problematic than C3, but not as like prevalent as Zig. And even though like Jai is known for having very long function names occasionally, Zig is just very, very verbose with very little power to it. So there is very little high level stuff, because that's like the thing that Zig doesn't like, is the high level stuff. And so you're going to be able to achieve more with Jai versus Zig, and like these critical things for compile time is going to look much better. If you do any games, Zig is just like in comparison to all of the other alternatives, and Jai in particular, since Jai has, it has operator overloading, it has this built-in engine, at least from what I mean, that's the plan in a way, and it has all these things for math and so on. So it will be really good for that. So in all these comparisons, Zig is like, and then if you want to have, well, it's going to be used in an IDE and so on, Jai is not the one you pick, nor is Zig. So if you care about these things, then you won't pick either. So they kind of play in the same place, and yet Zig is like lacking in everything. And then we have like Odin, which is like very, very good for the IDE, but just everything is built in. So more of a C, like more C-like actually. And so it's not like, if you pick Odin over Zig, then odds are you will probably not pick Jai. At least if you like those parts of Odin, that's kind of, it's not no compile time. And then we end up with C3, which is like the only of these alternatives that actually look like C. So if you want to have something that looks like C, that kind of everything is familiar, then C3 has that niche. And C3 has those operator overloads that Zig and Odin discards, right? But Odin has this alternative. Okay, you don't have operator overloading, but you have all these, array programming and so on, and matrices implemented, and quaternions as well. C3 has them. Okay, you can do that in userland, and Jai also have those in userland. So C3 has stuff for game dev. Odin has it. Jai has it. Zig is like, fuck you. Oh, sorry. But basically, it's good enough to have this very, very, and do cost and stuff like that. So when Jai comes in, and people like to write games, people like to, do stuff that looks exciting, and they are going to compare the most hyped with the most hyped. So that's going to be like Jai versus Zig, and they're going to see that, okay, I can do so much more things in Jai. So I think that, and Zig is the only one that's like vulnerable to hype loss, because it's like it requires this constant feeding with funding to be able to sustain itself, unlike Odin and C3. So it's if Jai eats Zig's limelight for a sufficiently long time, it's basically going to starve Zig of resources. And Zig is such a big project that it needs these kind of resources that it keeps consuming. So yeah. Okay, sorry, that was a long thing, but yeah. What do you think about the implicit context system adopted heavily by Jai and Odin? Okay, so there are nice things about that. I think the least nice thing is that it inhibits C interop, right? Because now you have this on one hand you have the this is C, which doesn't have any context, and this is that other part that is Odin or Jai, which has this context. And I took that, instead of paying that, C3 pays it in having thread locals and relying on thread locals, which is not nice because that is not good for coroutines. So I think there are benefits and advantages and disadvantages, but through the years, I have come to kind of reevaluate it and found that the usefulness of doing it like Jai does, that set the default allocator in the context and send that context down. It's not very granular and nice if you have a temp allocator. So you can't really know that the code inside will be temp allocator safe if you do it like this. That's, you can use scoped in C3, but it's kind of, you have to worry about it a little, right? If you have something that's very, is thread safe, everything is like, okay, then you can do it. But if it's not thread safe, you said it, I mean, there are funky things that can happen. So it's better to pass it explicitly, actually like SIG. But it's not like SIG that you have to pass it like a context basically all the time. Like now you have IO and you have like the allocator. Anyway, so you don't have to pass, you can have, grab it inside of everything, but you have to know that, it can be swapped. So I think that way of changing the allocator is not as nice as it sounded when I heard about it the first time. And even Odin, I know that Ginger Bell is not saying that, like, he's not encouraging people to use the context to swap up the allocator, which means that maybe it's not quite carrying its weight. It would have been easier to have the temp allocator that way. It's interesting also that C3 got a different temp allocator than Giant and Odin. That's due to a misunderstanding of Odin's temp allocator worked. I thought it was better. I thought it was better than it was. I didn't read enough of the Odin examples. So I made it like the way I thought Odin was. Which is a silly thing. But that happens. Actually, that happens. You can like envision games, like think, the screenshots, like, it's like that, and it's not like that. But if you made a game like that, it would be awesome. And that happens to me. So anyway, I thought that the temp allocator worked differently. But now we have a temp allocator which is kind of unique and different from Giant and Odin. And of course, swapping the allocator is a nice but overrated feature. Yeah, like you need to do it maybe, right? But it's you can't really do it safely. Like in C, that makes sense because you can't really push down the allocator usually to things. But the C3 standard library kind of allows you to do that very, very, very conveniently with that like little mem thing. So when I discovered that that was possible, I just simplified everything. Because before it was like I had to write like new init or something to indicate that here we pass in here's an overridable initializer, which actually does initialize something with memory, and you can override that. So you had to have this new thing. Right? That's just, that was like a new underscore, right? So 4 characters, right? And if you write mem and a comma and a space, that's 5 characters. So it's, anyway, so the the value of the context kind of went down. Odin made it simpler. It was not expandable. Whereas, if I remember correctly, Jai's context is actually expandable, so you can have more. You can put thread locals, use it for thread locals as well. So it has some bit more value. I don't think that Odin, the value trade-off is. It could be better for Odin, I think. I don't know if that's answered the question or not. Overloads with their complex resolutions seem to be way more complex than adding methods to language. Yeah, overloads, I don't like those. Operator overloads, that's the different thing. Overloads are crazy. They can be like if you weigh in things like costs, implicit costs, things get like really hairy. Okay, maybe I should, stop there. Didn't get anywhere, but we talked a bit. Yeah, it's getting warm here, but in Sweden, but still not like you have in the rest of Europe. I was in Germany for a week with kids, and like a few days were like 30-ish and day, but then got significantly colder in the evening. So that was okay. Now I hear the heat wave is like horrible in the rest of Europe. Yeah. And that's when it's good to live in Sweden here. It's going to be hot here too, but not that bad, I think. Any other questions? So I have a few issues, by the way, and I have to think about them. Like I have to let them grow. What do you think about the defer there? I think it could maybe be nice if it's simple to implement. We'll see. I prefer not to add any features. I would like to work on the game. And also, please be sure to test these, by the way. If you haven't already, then look at the new thread group, which is actually kind of inspired by a thread group that's in Jai, but also looking at Odin and stuff like that. Not well. These two pools. Let's see here. The pool and the fixed pool. Don't use them anymore. They are deprecated now, I guess. There's the thread pool. This is the one you should use. But it's feature blocked because otherwise the name would be like maybe it's possible. No, it wasn't. Yeah, so you need to use the new thread pool feature guard. But I think that's going to be nice. It says it's when I wrote the first ones, I was unsure of the thread. A lot of things in the how the threads were going to look like and stuff like that. So this is more of a this is one of these like classical thread pools that are workers for a web, some web server or something, because it's kind of you have this queue capacity, and you have a pool that has a maximum of threads, and it can be alive for a while and then resize. So like a resizing thread pool of stuff. So you have this keep alive, which is like a lot of knobs you can twist, you can turn and check what works best. Whereas these were really primitive, and this one, I think the pool, I think it's kind of broken. There is some like breaking. There's somewhere where it's like just broken, and I don't want to change this because it's just there's I don't know. If I do anything, maybe someone's relying on it breaking or something. So just don't use this, and let me know what you like about the thread group here. So it's under this experimental, by the way. So the thread group should be nicely commented as well. So look for bugs and such. So this one is a thread group. You have like you have a function, and then you have a lot of tasks, and then you collect the tasks afterwards, the results from those tasks in various ways. So you can do a poll, or you can do a join and wait for all of them and stuff like that. You can drop the results and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah. So the create join. Why the new thread will uses create join execution model for, while the old one uses detach for initialization. Let me see. I was looking at that. It was more of with detach. There's less, from what I understand, less control of the threads. Like here we can look at, I think some of them were, like you can, when you shut it down, for example, you do a full join on all the threads, right? I don't know what the like, you can compare, like, please do compare them. Like, see if you like, if you think it's a problem. But I'm thinking of this as more not like this super fast initial thing for the threads, thread pool. It's for something that is like has little latency anyway, that you're going to be like use these threads and then do something that might be a little slow, so that the thread overhead is not going to be the problem. So actually, the maybe later, or maybe someone has the some time to do it, would be to have to do a work stealing version of the thread group as well. So it could be even faster in some cases. So yeah. So yeah, so it depends on where you feel like, do we need to optimize this general case or not? So I'm also thinking that if I would make a an event handler kind of based thing, there's like that's a pattern I use for used with poker servers back in the day. Then you had like these event handlers that could send events to themselves and so on, and they were fed by a thread pool. But that thread pool was very, very special, like optimized for like handling these events from these event handlers in a very efficient way. So they kind of very, very intertwined. And so probably this is not the end of all of them, but just a general purpose thing that you can use. Like you need a thread pool. Okay, go take this. And then if you need something more specialized, then you have to look at what your usage pattern actually is. But hopefully maybe you can use it as a basis for something. That's my thoughts. Anything else? Should we maybe make this a wrap? So do send me. Oh, maybe someone said something in the Discord. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No. All right. So thanks for hanging out, and see you around, everyone.